Welcome to the Music Maker's Cookbook, the podcast that helps independent artists cook up recipes for success for the music industry. I'm Sean.
I'm Brandon.
And Brandon, have you ever gone to a music festival?
Yes, I have.
You have. All right. What's your favorite meal you've ever gotten to at a
great.
festival?
That's a great question. To be honest, it was like Warped Tour that had been there, and
I never got to go to Warped Tour, man.
Oh man,
it looks like such a fun time.
You missed out, but at the same time, you didn't miss much.
No?
Because those were brutal days, dude. Like just baking out in the parking lot sun in the middle of July for like 8 hours, 10 hours straight. Absolutely brutal. I don't know if I ever got food there though.
Really?
Just to be totally honest, because we were mainly looking for water the entire time and trying not to die.
I just want to live.
Just want to live, dude. But I will tell you.
Water.
I'll give you. Yeah, water's been the best meal at a festival. And I'll tell you what. After the festival or after any show, Taco Bell always hits.
It does hit.
Always hits. So that's my
hit.
favorite. I used to get the $5 box. There was the one time I went to an Avenged Sevenfold show, like way back in the day. This is like 2008 before their drummer died and everything. And I got the $5 volcano box at the time.
Oh, I remember
That's
those,
what made me fall in love with the volcano menu. And when it came out last year, I had to go get it.
Oh, it came back?
Yeah, it came back for like a month or something, and I had to go get it.
I wasn't part of that. I'm sad now.
Man, yeah. Hopefully they'll bring it back because it's a fan favorite.
I'm sure they will.
I'm sure they will some other time.
It's like the Taco Bell McRib equivalent.
Exactly. It's so funny because like we talk about creating scarcity, with like what we do to like, kind of like help drive demand and stuff, whatever. And like fast food places are able to do the same thing. And I just find that so fucking funny for some reason.
They are masters at it.
Yes, they are.
They
it's just
really are.
so crazy to me. What about you?
So the only festival that I've been to was one that I worked, that I did for like 3 years in a row, called Sacred Vibrations. But I do a lot of local concert series that have food trucks and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a little bit of a different spin on this, though, and tell like a story behind one of the food trucks I went to. On the last year that we did Sacred Vibrations, and it might have been the last year the festival happened, I was hired to go there and record multi-track recordings of the artists, and then also just the stereo set of the DJ, remix and master it so that the festival could then post certain performers on their website afterwards so people could go back and listen to their favorite set.
That's really cool.
Something really cool, yeah. In the very last show, the headliner, the final day was Papadosio, which was a band I was really looking forward to listening to. They're a jam band, but they're really tight. And unfortunately, they record all of their own live sets to begin with. So they had their own guy, their own system. They're the headliner. They took over everything, just used all their stuff to make it work.
Sure.
So I wasn't doing any recording, which I was bummed. I was kind of hoping I could mix them, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, cool. Well, I'm not needed here, so let's get some dinner. I was actually, my buddy Joe was there with me.
Oh, cool.
We were recording it. We go to this one vendor who's selling chicken sandwiches. So we get 2 chicken sandwiches. I get one, but it was pretty good. It was a pretty good chicken sandwich. I would say 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
He bites into it, and he has very, very weak teeth. And there was a bone in the chicken sandwich still, because it was a real chicken sandwich. I don't. And it cracked his tooth in half.
Oh. I couldn't even imagine like the pain.
Yep.
And like how he felt after that.
So at first he's like, the pain's not that bad. It must have like just barely gone off the side. It was still, both halves were in there. It was like just split.
Okay,
it wasn't like fully cracked in half. It was split.
Yeah.
He's like, we can make it till the end of the show. We'll just leave afterwards. Don't worry about it. I'm like, sure, we can leave if we need to. He's like, no, let's just stick around. We got to grab your stuff afterwards and load out. And as the time went on, about 4 hours later, he's like, no, this is starting to hurt. I need to go back. I need to see a dentist.
Starting to get exposed or something.
Yeah. So we drove back. I didn't get to see Papadosio, which I'm bummed about.
Damn, dude.
But they were a couple microphone stands short, so they used my microphone stands
that's kind of badass
recording sessions. So
it's kind of badass.
Yeah.
Are these?
Not these ones. No,
I would have licked it. No, I'm just kidding.
Tastes like jam band. Okay.
Oh man, no, that's actually crazy to think about. Like, I didn't, when you mentioned that, I didn't even consider when I was working for the radio station and all the festivals we had to do then. But even then, like, nothing really stuck out to me. So maybe like pizza, like just to grab something easy. But that really sucks about the chicken sandwich, though. Yeah. I just had a chicken sandwich over the weekend from this restaurant in Ann Arbor, and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And because we did talk about this last week, I think actually we had talked about it in passing, and if you would have told me about it again, I might have gotten something else off the menu out of fear of a chicken bone. Just saying, because like,
but you didn't, and you're happy.
But I
with
didn't,
it.
and I'm happy.
Yeah.
So, but next time I won't. You know.
That being said, let us know if you have any awesome festival stories with food that don't relate to teeth breaking, or good food you've got before or after show, or if you, like Brandon and I, are a fan of late night Taco Bell runs.
Oh yeah,
they can really hit after like a long live show in a bar or at a venue or whatnot. It's the only place open.
I know.
It's the only place open.
And the $5 deal at the time was awesome. I think you said they still have that, right?
On the app only, and it's $6 now.
You know, everything good has to come to an end.
Everything good comes to an end. Yep. But something that is good that shouldn't come to an end is clear communication.
Yes.
And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yes, I like that.
I was a stretch of a
hey, you know what?
crossover,
it
but
works. It was very clear and communicative.
Yeah, but we're going to be talking a little bit, how to communicate a little bit better with people in your band, people in the industry, promoters, interviewers, podcasters like us, people in your studio session, like session musicians, mixing master engineers, the whole shebang. Just kind of talk and be relatable. And all that stuff.
It can definitely be really difficult to, do overall because there's a lot that kind of goes into it. And if you're not thinking at least somewhat consciously of what you're doing and how you're doing it, that can lead to a lot of problems.
Especially the first time you meet somebody. First impressions do make an impact. And then capitalizing on a positive first impression quickly afterwards is important. But that's not today's episode. Today we're focusing on the first impression, how to communicate clearly and make it easier at the start.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get into tip number one.
Go for it,
This is the one I came up with. Stay up front on time. Early is better. And be honest with your communication. Like, I don't think there's anything worse than getting told last minute that somebody can't do something or something, happens where it's like you knew in advance that, you might have not been able to make this gig. You might not have been able to make the studio day this day. And yet you neglected it until the day before, the day of. There's nothing more frustrating than that, and that can lead to a lot of burnt bridges, especially if there's a lot of monetary stake involved in it. So be upfront, be early on it if you can. Like sometimes you can't, but the earliest you can be is right when you're told about what's going on, right? So you have to tell somebody, be honest, be like, hey, I actually cannot make that day. Let's choose a different day. And as long as you have understanding bandmates or understanding teammates or whatever you're doing, it'll go a lot smoother.
For sure.
A lot smoother. Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes last minute things, a lot of times last minute things happen.
Yep, inevitably.
And there's a little bit of understanding that people have of like, hey man, shit happens. So sometimes even if something major happens, like a family member passes away or things like that, you don't get back for a couple of days. And then because you're not communicating for that stretch of time, you not being able to do something becomes last minute for the person you're talking to. If it is last minute, try to, as you mentioned, be early and upfront if you can. But if you do have to say something last minute, something we learned from our series on the book Influence of was Dr. Robert Cialdini?
Yep.
Yeah. Something we learned about through that book is giving a reason why, just a simple because can be helpful to help somebody understand and help prevent burning that bridge.
Yes.
It's like, hey man, sorry I hadn't responded the past couple of days. There was a big important shift in the family dynamic that we had to take care of. I'm not going to be able to make the show tomorrow. And it's last minute. And then the last thing you can do is if you do have a last minute thing is try to present a workaround or an option moving forward. So something like, here's my buddy's number. He might be able to sit in for me. Yeah. Or just whatever the end up workaround may be for whatever issue that you are arising. If this is like a last minute, something happened, you have to make changes. But just being clear about it, telling them the reasoning why, so they are understanding and leads to them being empathetic, and then also giving a potential path forward, even if it's not the path they tried to go with. Now, after they receive the bad news, they're starting to think about potential solutions, which just lead to a smoother way of resolving whatever problem that may arise. Yeah. So,
yeah. And like if you're having issues helping frame what you're saying, and like this can be done over text or this can be done over an email, you can always ask ChatGPT to help you out, right? If you can't find the correct words to say, but you need to make sure that you're not using it for a malicious purpose. Like, hey, give me an excuse to back out of this, right? You can't do that. So there's a fine line there.
Be truthful,
but be truthful.
No lies.
But, if you are having issues with trying to convey a certain message and maybe the severity of it, or like holding yourself accountable for it somehow, ChatGPT can help you out, believe it or not. So, and then that will give you a better framework to move forward with, later with other forms of communication and stuff too. So,
and AI is just becoming so more and more prevalent in how we communicate in order of allowing us to do things like this. Like, I know part of the business that's in this building with me is an event booking thing for local community concerts. And sometimes we use ChatGPT when we're responding to bands to or sponsors to talk about what the event is, what to expect, either accepting them or turning them down in a kind way, or keeping the door open or whatever it may be. Using AI, like be it ChatGPT, Copy AI, or even Grammarly. Even Grammarly has one too. So tools like that are all around, and they are very helpful, even if it's not what you end up sticking with.
Right.
I mean, and it never should be like 100% what you end up sticking with.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
But it'll help you think about like, oh yeah, maybe I didn't think about this being a reason. Or, oh yeah, that is a better way of phrasing it. But what if I change this up and that's even more positive, or things like that. It's really just a tool to help start
the conversation. Yeah, exactly. And especially if you're actually dealing with a lot at the time too, it can be hard to find the words, like, you know, like a shift in the family dynamic or something that requires your full attention. And you know, sometimes ChatGPT is there to hold your hand a little bit. So, and like the other pieces of software Sean mentioned too. This kind of goes into tip number 2.
It goes directly into tip number 2.
Be reliable and stick to your word. And that's important for exactly what you think. But not only that, it also builds value over time to your word. And I think that's extremely important, because I don't know how many people I've told this in the past couple of weeks, just because I've been waiting on certain projects to come in from other engineers, other producers elsewhere. Being reliable is like over half of the battle in the music industry. And if you can be reliable and stick to what you say you're going to do, or be communicative with tip number 1 up front, you will make it pretty fucking far just by that alone. So the more that you are able to stick to your word, the more value your word holds, right? Yeah. And people trust you. It's just about building that trust, right? Yeah. That one's extremely important to me. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So the way I like to think about it is, and this was told, I read this in a book. I'm trying to think of what book it was. It might have been 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But I think, anyways, it's something I read in a book, and it basically coins that relationships are kind of like a bank, which is why I use the word coins, because it's, you know, pun. But when you have somebody that you're building a relationship with, and you're communicating clearly with, and you follow through on your word, you are making small deposits into that other person's perception of you, and you are building the overall account. So if you are there constantly delivering on time, or showing up before, or like early or directly on time, and making sure your shit's all taken care of, and doing what you say and following through on your word, you are making deposits to whoever is on the receiving end of that shows, hey, there's value of this person. Their account's going up. There's value there. The more you're able to do things like be consistent, show up, be a person of your word, follow through, and if you can't follow through, bring solutions, be the person that helps solve the problem, not just brings the problem. Yep, exactly. Be proactive. Yep. That also increases the deposit in the bank. And it might be weird that thinking, oh, well, bring up a problem, you might think is a deduction from the bank, which it is, if you just present the problem. And you have to make sure you have a big enough... Sweetwater tried calling me. And you have to make sure you have a big enough deposit for you to make a withdrawal. So you have to make sure you have that consistency behind you in order to keep a strong relationship if something does happen. Yeah. But if you're being proactive, you can negate that and keep it kind of net.
Absolutely.
A positive thing happened. I had to take a withdrawal, but I'm helping the solution, so I'm making another deposit again. That's just kind of a visual way of kind of representing it. That being said, like a bank, interest does exist in relationships. If you are consistent over time, what you put in, the perception of it will grow beyond exactly what you've put in, because now there is proof of consistency, and there's faith that gets built up within the person, which is a personal interest.
Yeah.
I didn't say that extremely clearly, but hopefully if you kind of are more of a visual or story person, that kind of helps kind of verbally showcase why it's important to follow through and be a person of your word and make these deposits into these people.
Absolutely.
Because when you need to make exactly. So when you need to make withdrawals, you can.
Exactly.
You're not over withdrawing, because when you over withdraw, that's when the relationship starts to fall apart.
Absolutely. Helps build the social credit score.
Yes.
Absolutely. 100%. And that kind of leads us to tip number 3, actually.
Oh, wow.
Would you imagine that? We outlined it. Hold yourself accountable. So like if these things do happen, you do have to take out of that bank, that savings account that you have, right? At least hold yourself accountable to the point where you're like, acknowledge that you messed up, or something came up, or there's a way that you maybe could have avoided it at some point, right? And just tell them that you have my word that this will not happen again. And the next time that this does happen, you have to make sure that it doesn't happen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if a scenario comes up that is a very similar scenario to what just happened, you have to make sure that you follow through with what you said you were going to do originally, and go through with your word. Otherwise, this point doesn't matter. If you're not holding yourself accountable, there's really no point to even talk about the rest of these points, because then it's just you won't get anywhere with it. You have to be able to acknowledge where you might have messed up. You can't push the blame. And sometimes these things happen, and even so, like, if something does happen, like, you could have been like, hey, I could have been proactive about it and maybe seen this somehow, some way, shape, or form down the line when I got an initial inclination, and then you'll learn as you go. This is a very much an experience thing, and you have to get good at it. And you have to be able to be humble about it. Yeah. That's the hardest part. Yeah. That's the hardest part.
And it's just said, like, don't just say, oh, I take full accountability for this. Like, actually take accountability for it.
Yep.
And part of taking accountability is, as you said, saying this will never happen again, and putting in systems to help prevent it from happening again. Being proactive, being part of the solution, not the problem, not just the problem. It is what's necessary to keep yourself accountable, and then to showcase that, yes, I am actually taking accountability for it, not just verbalizing
Absolutely.
it. So
yeah, but one way you can kind of do this that I wrote down here is you can start writing things down specifically, right? And
there's power behind the physical act of writing paper. We're not
so.
Just saying, like, type it on a keyboard or whatever. Like, actually write it down, because studies have proven that when you write it, or even if you say it while you're writing it or whatever, it helps cement it stronger in the brain.
Yeah,
so,
very much so.
On the literal sense, write it down, not just type it. Not
exactly.
Just whatever, like, write it down.
Exactly. And if you're in a band or some kind of group too, then write it down for either your bandmates or your team, and then have it somewhere sacred where everybody can refer to at the same time, and be able to see that commitment written down, right? That way everybody is on the same page, and then if anything does arise coming up to that event, coming up to that moment, whatever it may be, there can be clear communication, and you guys can figure out a solution around it. Yeah. And that kind of leads us to the conflict resolution of this topic too, is that addressing conflicts as quickly and as calmly as possible will help so much. If you let things fester and just build over time, there is a negative feedback loop associated with that, and things will get way worse and way more out of control and way more unfixable the more that you let things fester sometimes. So you have to be pretty good at conflict resolution at this point. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Moving on to that, number 4, which I think is, you were talking about bands earlier. If you are in a band, maintaining a reliable path to communication is incredibly important. Like, keeping it as a forefront within any group dynamic.
Yep.
Especially one that's going to be potentially as long-term and life-altering as a band.
Yes.
It's a found family to a degree, because you're saying, I'm going to tour with these people, I'm going to stick with these people, we're going to create together, and making sure you maintain a strong relationship. That's how a lot of bands fall apart.
Yep.
So as you mentioned, with conflict resolution, addressing these things quickly and calmly is incredibly important. And a simple way to do that is to maintain a group communication method that you guys go to consistency. You wrote down like a group chat or something.
Yep. Some kind of technological thing digitally.
Yes.
Right? Yep.
But also you need to schedule. Usually we, keep it open ended. Like, you could do this, you could do that. Whichever works best for you. This one I feel confident saying it's almost a necessity. Concrete. Meet with them in person. Yes. Schedule it at least once every other week. Yep. Once a month at the absolute max.
That's bare minimum.
At the absolute max. Yep. Where the whole purpose of sitting down isn't to hang, isn't to create, isn't to work on music. It's to specifically talk about what is happening in the band, invite people to talk about any issues they may be having or struggles they have in their personal life that could relate to the band, and like try to build up that kind of communication of, okay, what is something that could be a big thing that I might not know about, or what is something that I am having an issue with that you might not know about, and make sure that it's able to be talked about and out in the open. And then being able to address these quickly and calmly, like in tip 3, is incredibly necessary to then look at it, resolve it, and move forward.
Yep.
And on top of that, the reason I say that it's really imperative to have this all be done in person is because group chats are great. Discord groups are great. Things like that are great. Yep. But when you read, you are supplementing the intent that is provided in the text with what you assume the intent to be.
Right.
If there is an important thing that's happening, always do it face to face or on the phone.
Yep.
Let the voice and the body language help communicate
Excellent
what's
point.
going on as well.
Yep.
If something big happened that's really important to you, or even something small happened that's really important to you, like, hey, this happened at our last tour and it made me feel really uncomfortable. Yes, you can put it in a text, but also make sure you actually talk to it with the people in the room or on the phone so they can hear in your voice and see in your body language that, oh no, this really matters. This isn't something that's like, oh, that was no big deal. It didn't affect me. So I'm putting my intent of diminishing it because that was my experience. No, they can see through your experience that it really mattered.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it really helps prevent fights or blow-ups or huge disagreements because they're not, like, if I'm angry and I read a text that could be construed as angry, I'm probably going to attach that emotion to it.
Yep.
Whereas if we're talking face-to-face and it's showcased, like, oh no, there's apathy in the words and the body language and the emotion in the vocals, I'm not going to add anger to it,
right?
Because it's more obvious and being better communicated that that's not the intent of what's happening here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everything you just said was a very big gold mine of this episode right now. Yeah. Body language and tone of voice and everything is extremely important in delivering everything and communicating effectively. I actually don't have that even written down, but like that should not go understated because it is extremely important with how you deliver things and how you take things because like Sean said, you never know when you send out a message what somebody's actually going through at the time. And if they're angry and they see that and they'll attach anger to it just because of something that you didn't even do. And that can just be so detrimental and can lead to a lot of conflict in the future. So excellent point. Everybody go re-listen to that because that was just awesome. I love that so much.
If it's important to you, don't do it over text.
Absolutely.
Or email or whatever.
Yep. 100%.
Well, speaking of emails.
Yes.
Tip number 5.
If you're emailing somebody outside of the band, outside of the group, outside of your teammates.
Everyone message individually.
Yeah. Yeah. You want a fucking shitstorm of shit? What?
Yes.
Yes. That would be it. That'd be the way to do it.
If you want a shit tornado.
Yes. If you're talking to somebody outside of the band, outside of the group, elect one person to do it, and then you communicate through that person.
Yes.
Right?
Have a conduit.
Yes.
Point of contact.
Yep. Because it is a mess if you have 6 different people emailing one person.
Are you talking about this from experience, Brandon?
No.
Maybe. Give us why would this be a bad thing if everyone messaged you? And you know, let's hypothetically talk about a recording studio environment and a band is working with you, Brandon. If everyone messaged you individually, what could happen from that?
Yeah, hypothetically, if we're working on a project or whoever is working on the project, of course. Let's say you're working with an audio engineer. I don't know, just pulling it out of the hat, of course.
Crazy.
Yeah, weird.
In this industry?
Yeah, no, weird. And let's say that, you have 5 people in the group and you're all recording and you all have different ideas and revisions and stuff. And you just feel like you need to express those revisions to the engineer yourself. And then your buddy does the same thing. And then your other friend does the same thing. And all of a sudden there's 5 different emails going to the same engineer. And some of those revisions cross over each other or they negate each other or they add on to each other or, things start to get a little messy.
Yep.
All of a sudden that record that you're working on sucks because nobody's communicating effectively and the engineer is getting stressed out because he's getting told to do 5 different damn things, right? And now all of a sudden we have this web of a mess that we all have to go untangle and nobody's being clear or effective about it. And then now the engineer also has to email 5 different people back. Don't do that. It's just an absolute mess and it's going to lead you down a terrible path and it's going to destroy anything that you have going on that you really like in the record, right? You guys have to be able to talk about it with each other and then come up to the group consensus that this is the revision we want. Let's send it through the conduit, right? Send it through the one person over to the engineer and let's just get it done.
Yeah.
And it can be a mess.
It can be.
Yeah.
And to no fault of any of the artists involved,
of course.
There is a bias when it comes to things that we create. It's the more me mentality. When I first started working in the studio, I would take revisions from everybody in the band. Yep. And I would ask for everyone's feedback individually and send it out to everybody individually.
Me too.
And inevitably, the feedback was always the drummer wanted more drums, the bassist wanted more bass, the guitarist wanted more guitar, and the vocalist wanted more vocals. Because that's what they're familiar with. That's what they know. That's what sounds good. That's what they want to hear above everything else. There are only like 2 or 3 things that can really be above everything else in the mix. The brain can only really focus on a couple of things really actively.
Right.
So the conversation needs to be had within the band of, hey, what's important here? At this spot, hey, it might be cool to hear more guitar, but, the vocals and the keys are more important. So you know what, the guitar is actually good where it is, but we definitely need to increase it in this spot or alter it in this location so that it fits better. But having that communication happen as a group that can then be communicated through one point of contact allows for these changes that are actually beneficial to the song as a whole to occur, not just, hey, I want more of this, I need more of that, I want this added on or taken away. So, through one point of contact. Yeah. Also, it's incredibly important if you are contacting anybody else, if you are going for an interview or you're playing a show, you want someone to be the one that can respond quickly and make the decision.
Absolutely.
Like, yep, nope, we're good that day. Like, I have access to the full calendar. You have somebody be in charge of getting the gigs. Cool. They're the one that, if anything arises, they're the one that gets contacted. They're the ones that schedule it. You're not having one person say, yep, we're good that day. Somebody else sending them their set list. Somebody else sending in the line list. Somebody else signing in the
stage plot
or the rider or... It's better if it all comes through one email, through one person, through one thread, so you can all look back, keep it contained, keep it organized, and call back to that.
Absolutely. There's no reason why you guys couldn't all have access to the same band email, but only one person should reply to that, and you should have that designated person too, because like even if you do reply through the same email, that alias doesn't give you the permission to respond as your own individual entity through the band. You have to still communicate it through the conduit who is assigned to do that, and usually bands I feel are pretty decent with electing who the band of or the official, the lead is, typically that typically kind of takes care of these things. But I just want to mention that too, because even if you do have access to the band email, it doesn't mean you can just go send willy-nilly off whatever you want. You still have to communicate effectively with the people within that alias of the email.
Side note, not just a single person. If anywhere that's applicable, which is most times, also through one method of communication.
Yes. Great point.
Yeah. So if the conversation is directly through email line, that's where the conversation's been, don't go sending a DM on their Instagram page to get things changed.
That's the worst
or
thing.
Sending a text message or calling up or whatnot. Keep it consistent where it is, so that way it's all collected and all together. There are times where, it is through email, I'm working with the band and, it's going smooth, and then I'll get a text message like, hey, can you throw this on? Because it's late night. They're listening to it in the car. They have an idea pop in their head. Text is super easy. Be like, great, fantastic. Please email this to me, and I'll be sure to tackle it as soon as I get the email. Because for my source of reference, I need it all in one place so I can look back and make sure that everything being asked doesn't cut over or mess something up that was said earlier down the line or potentially be said later down the line. So keep it on one platform of communication as well as through one person.
Yep, absolutely. Great point, actually, because I just had this actually happen to me. I need to get a little bit better with this, but I was working with my buddy David on his band's album, and I went to go import session data into Pro Tools. And when I did that, the Melodyne didn't transfer because at the time I was using Melodyne as a plugin before we could use it as ARA. And it wouldn't find the Melodyne cached file for me on the other hard drive. And I didn't know that at the time. I just assumed all was good. I committed it. And he was like, hey, the timing that we worked on, because I was editing the timing in Melodyne, it's super transparent. And I was like, he was like, hey, this sounds weird. I was like, let me go back and look. And sure enough, it had the red line in there. And I was like, oh, shit. So instead of emailing him back right away, once I found the solution, I called him because I was like, hey, I want to let you know that this is my bad. I found the issue. I'm going to fix it, But even then, I should have documented that somewhere in an email, somewhere in like a follow-up thing where, hey, I just want to make sure that we have this down because I don't have it documented at the moment, but I remember it. But if this was 4 years down the line, no way I'm remembering that phone call. No fucking way am I going to remember that. So I need to get better with that. And it's actually a good thing to send follow-ups too. So if you ever get in a situation like that where, hey, this needs to be a phone call instead, you have to document it somewhere just to have that paper trail where you can go back and reference, hey, we did talk about this. Not to hold it over anybody's head at any time, but just to make sure that you are reassured that you guys did talk about this.
Yeah, just a confirmation email of like, hey, enjoyed talking with you. Glad we're on the same page.
Exactly.
Just to confirm everything we talked about. this is what happened on the phone call. Let me know if I forgot anything, or if you think of anything else you want to add to it.
Yep.
Just summarize it real quick.
Great. That's awesome. I gotta do that myself. So maybe I'll write that down for myself to get better at. There you go.
So now, number 6, that is something that I struggle very heavily with on this podcast, is to remain an active listener and not talk over the co-host. I talk over Brandon all the time.
I do it to Sean too, so
it's not even close.
No, you
way
think?
more than you. I edit these. I see it.
Man, no, I feel like I talk over you a lot.
Nah, man.
Really?
It's 7 times out of 10. It's me talking over you.
Wow, I didn't know that.
No, but being able to just sit back.
I still feel like I talk over you. No, I'm just
Fair enough, man. Whatever. You can feel that way. But half of communication is listening.
Yes.
But honestly, I think like 80% of
I think so
communication
too.
is listening.
I think so too.
Being able to actually sit back and engage in what the other person is thinking or communicating, and taking in their thoughts and the dynamic of all of it, and all that stuff like that. It showcases that, hey, I actually care.
Yeah.
I'm actually interested in your thoughts and your opinion. And you can't learn anything that you didn't know by talking.
Yep.
You can connect dots and reaffirm things that you know, but there's nothing new there because you're not taking in any new information. So being able to, and practicing, it's a hard muscle to do. It's
so tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But having the muscle of like, nope, I'm going to sit back and I'm just going to listen and think about it. And the big thing is try not to plan what you're going to say next.
Oh, that one I struggle with a lot, dude. A lot.
There have been times I have to catch myself on this podcast where like you'll say something.
I do the same thing.
And I'll be like, I know I'm going to respond to that. And then you keep talking for like 2 minutes.
Dude, yes.
And for like a minute and 50 seconds, I'm like, okay, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. I'm like,
yep.
Well, we've kind of moved past that.
And it moves away from it. I do the same shit. Yep. Same exact thing. It's so tough. And this takes patience.
It does.
That's the active listening part that takes patience. And unfortunately, the way that we're kind of like ingrained with technology these days, we're kind of moving through life pretty quick. Each video lasts for 30 seconds on TikTok, if that, and then you scroll, right? Our attention span doesn't last for that long anymore. Like we're kind of just moving as fast as possible with the technology that we have. And this takes a lot of patience and a lot of learning to do, and just getting good at. And some of the ways that you can kind of do it is not only just being an active listener and actually listening, but confirming what people are saying. Say it back to them, or say, yes, I agree about this specific thing, right? Or
that's a great point. One of the ways, one of the best ways to showcase that, hey, I'm actually listening to you and help them feel more important, is to say exactly what they said, but in your own words.
Exactly. And then that way, if you do say it in your own words and you understand it a certain way, and if that's not the way that it was meant to be understood, they'll actually correct you on the spot for that. And then that will shift. And then all of a sudden the communication has been effectively solved because like there can be that minute details where it's like, you say one thing, but it's like slightly different, and that can throw off the whole machine, right?
Yeah. And this is a precursor to a later tip, which we'll cover in a couple ones, but like just opening the door to that feedback, prefacing it with like, hey, correct me if I'm misunderstanding you, but this is what I'm taking from what you're saying.
Yeah.
Open that door to them saying, no, that's wrong. And otherwise there might be that pressure or the awkwardness of like, no, that's about it.
Exactly.
You want to understand what they're saying.
Yep.
That is the only way to really form that, more of a bond.
100%.
And have through that level of effectiveness and communication.
Yep.
And also like showing that, hey, I'm paying attention to you, I'm caring about you. That's a deposit in the bank, man.
Yep.
That's a little deposit in the bank. That's one of the easiest ways to do it.
Yep.
And it's a small thing you can do consistently.
Yep. I think that one's a really important one. And if you heard active listening and immediately tuned out, then this might be something you want to double check, because I know this seems very elementary and you're told this a lot in school and everything, and it's very high school, but it's actually very important in life. It's
very important. Yep. Also important is being clear with your vernacular, your dosy tones.
Ooh.
That was a reference to DBZ Bridge.
I like that.
Anyway, clear and concise communication.
Yeah.
Actually being forward and clear about the way to communicate it, and communicating it in a way that's easily understandable. There's an Einstein quote of, you don't really understand anything unless you can communicate it to a child. If you can't explain it to somebody who doesn't understand it, then you don't really know it.
Yep. That's why explain like I'm 5 exists on Reddit, right?
Yeah.
It's like explain this like I'm 5 years old. Talk to me like I'm a child, because I want to make sure I understand it at its very root foundation. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're going to be talking about things that you don't understand at that level, but always trying to aim to communicate it at that level helps you. As we said, you're not going to learn anything new, but you can define your ideas and really focus in on what you know, and going in with the approach of, oh, I'm going to communicate this in a way that anyone can easily understand it, makes you think about it deeper, which helps your understanding as you communicate it.
Yep, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah,
I love
teaching
that
is the
so
best
much.
way of learning.
Teaching is the best way of learning.
That's why we're doing this podcast.
That's right. That's right. Because now I'm learning from what Sean's saying.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're learning from what we're saying. And maybe you can make a podcast and then teach other people too.
For sure.
And then it's a nice feedback loop. Look at that. Knowledge.
Man, that must have been. There's other things we can say about this, but you just said a feedback loop, so that's like the perfect transition.
Yeah, we might as well talk about it. Right?
Yeah.
Or we might as well talk
Let's
about
just
it.
jump right back into the final tip today.
Keep open feedback channels. And I don't mean on Discord. You could do it on Discord if you want. But what I'm really saying is that just make sure that you're always open to feedback from other people, right? And that way you are able to also communicate feedback that you have to bestow upon others as well. I was not very clear or concise about that information I just gave you. Basically, what I'm just saying is that just be open to talking with each other about specific things like reviews or feedback on something that somebody does. And just be willing to give critiques, be open to critiques.
Being open to it. Yeah, don't put a notch filter on the frequency necessary for response. That was
I love that.
I love that.
That was
a sound guy
I
joke.
can't wait to go do fucking music today, dude.
Man, we do music.
Not only that, but also be willing to give compliments when compliments are due. I feel like that's often overlooked too. Nobody ever talks about the compliment part of things, but like if you have an opportunity to give a serious, genuine compliment, do it. Take every opportunity
Hardy
to do
in
that.
your affirmations and lavish with your praise.
Absolutely.
That is from How to Make Friends and Influence People. If you believe it, but the thing is, you have to be truthful. You have to believe it. But if you think, man, what you just said was awesome, like that's really beneficial, and it can go like verbalize it. Which, by the way, was an example of like what you're saying is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Be willing to receive compliments.
Exactly. You have to be open to it as well as you're willing to give it, and that can be kind of hard to do, especially depending on where you are in life. But it's very much so healthy to be open and accepting of things and not just closed off to verbal praise.
Absolutely. A lot of the time, like a lot of the way that we're kind of like, groomed in society. I'm very overlooking arching today, I guess. So, but we do focus on the negative a lot of the time, right? And that's kind of like what we're kind of taught to do. And so, being open to critiques and critiquing people are often the main points of the topic at this point. But I want to make sure that it's like that we can understand that like compliments are equally as good, if not even more powerful when they're used correctly, right? So just be willing to, be able to do that. And I think that quote from How to Win Friends and Make Influence People is fantastic to illustrate that point. They have to be genuine and, they have to be real. They have to be real, and like people will understand when you're not being real and genuine with a compliment, and they'll just be like, you're bullshitting me. And then, all of a sudden there's that negative equity from the bank. So
yes,
just saying, but I like that one an awful lot. I do. It keeps everyone open.
It does.
And productive.
It does.
I like that one.
Yeah. And it helps. Having an open feedback channel allows for self-improvement as well as an open feeling of an exchange of ideas in a space where it's, safe to express different viewpoints based on whatever you're talking about. As we talked about earlier, within a band or within a group, being open to getting feedback from other members about, hey, this worked, this didn't, this felt good, this didn't, I like this, I didn't. Feeling like, no, I can communicate this is insanely important, and having feedback channels that are purposefully built, that exist to receive the thoughts of other people that can help influence what you're doing and craft and mold it. And this also relates to your fans. Having a direct channel of communication to your fans can be beneficial.
Absolutely.
To know like what they don't like whether it be the stage performance, which song is their favorite on the album. Go on and on and on. You can be creative with it, but just having channels that exist for feedback, for clear communication back to where it all starts, allows for better understanding through clear communication on whoever is on the other side of whatever this two-way street is.
Love it.
Yeah. Speaking of having a open feedback channel, If you'd like to reach out to us, you can contact us at podcast@musicmakerscookbook.com. That is our email. We would love to hear from you on your thoughts about this podcast episode, any sort of topics you'd like us to cover in the future, your thoughts and your favorite festival meal that you've had based on the question we had at the start of this episode.
Yep.
Or if you just want to say hi, you can definitely reach out to us on the podcast there.
You know what? Maybe, we both have access to the email, but we'll choose one person to respond to it.
Yep.
I think that'll be a good idea. What do you think? Yeah.
We'll figure that out behind the scenes.
We just demonstrated that point number or whatever it was.
But you can also contact us through TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube. We have posts that we put out there. And obviously, DM, we're not the best at getting back at DMs, but we will get back to you eventually.
Absolutely.
And we do see it whenever you guys comment or make references to things that we're doing or email us. It is seen, and we do read it all, and we really, really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Dude.
So if you want to give us feedback on how we're doing and how we can better help you with better podcast episodes moving forward, definitely contact us there.
Please.
But you can also contact us individually.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Sean, where can they find you?
Oh, we're going me first this time.
Oh.
Man, he's switching up on me.
Yeah, I did.
Just ignoring consistency that was said earlier in the day. No. If you create folk, rock, or acoustic music, contact me at SWS Recordings. I do remote mixing and mastering. I also do video sessions where I can help you get a better home recording. I also do one-on-one coaching, which is basically this podcast, just more specifically tailored for your career to help you find success in the music industry.
Love it.
You can reach out to me at my website, once again, swsrecordings.com. Fill out the form, contact me there, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I also have social media platforms for the studio. Those, once again, I don't get to as quickly, so reach out through the form if you want a quick and speedy response. We look forward to hearing you from that.
Sean's
Brandon,
awesome.
how can they find you?
Sean's awesome. Contact him.
I'm not accepting that compliment. I'm just kidding. I'm accepting. I appreciate it.
I already gave it to you.
I'm open to it.
Good.
I appreciate it.
Glad to hear that.
Well, because I can tell that it's genuine.
It is genuine.
Yeah.
It is genuine.
Yeah.
So there you go. You can find more about what I do
which is also really good.
Oh, thank you, Sean.
Really, really good.
Thank
Great,
you,
fantastic, phenomenal, brilliant.
You can find more about what I do at studio222recording.com. The website is up. I broke it the other day.
You did?
So I'll tell you about that. I forgot to tell you about that. Yes,
All
I did.
right.
Yep, which is awesome. It's back up now and running. So you can go there and fill out an inquiry. I work on pretty much any type of music. Just send it my way and we'll see what we can do. I record, mix, master. Send me an inquiry. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. The best way to contact me is through the website, but you can also find me on social media platforms at _Brandon McLeod or at Studio222 Recording. Like Sean said earlier, not the best at responding to DMs, but I will try my best to get back to you as soon as humanly possible. Boom. Boom.
All right. And with that being said, thank you for joining us in our kitchen as we cook up recipes. Make sure to tune in next week as well for following recipes on this industry. We got some really fun ones lined up. We've planned out the next dozen or so episodes. So got some really fun ones coming up.
We do.
So make sure to tune in and come back to the kitchen. Yeah. But until next time,
bon appetit.